quite a while in those days. In fact, you're the one that inspired. We're going to get those shirts. We're working on it. Good.
Yeah.
My name is Mike Brown. This is the release. That's for the press conference. So people I got mine from Chief Eddie.
Okay, because I know something went through.
When I get done with it, I'm going to give it back to him.
I think those shirts came from LL Bean.
They did. And then we had Marcy having endorsed
And I think Margie even had her name put on, right? Like her manager.
Yeah. So the printing company that we use is remember. So we made all of it different logos because
I was gonna say, I know they do it.
like she had
And if you just let LL Bean do it.
maybe, yeah.
I know, I read.
Logo guy too. So we made it just that. It was
I have my but the thing is, yeah, it's like her uniform, makes it easy for her. It's up, just puts one of her shirts on, doesn't have to think about it.
We're going to get started here in just a second. So I already let a couple people know I will send electronic copies of the press release out to all of my media outlets. But I wanted you to have a hard copy today. And then I will send a PDF of the 4 poster boards along with that, so you have that as well. Just quick reminder too, Dave and members of law enforcement will do their best to answer certain questions. Again, reminder though that many of these are active and ongoing investigations, so they may be limited in what they can say, but just so keep that in mind. And if anyone does not have my contact information and would like that, I have business cards, so.
May I have one, please?
Ed, I know you do.
I have multiple.
You're giving them back so he saves some money.
That's right.
Kyle, can I board again?
Yes.
I was thinking
No, that's fine.
Instead of paying.
Yeah, just don't give it to Ed.
He said he's going to start getting them back.
That's right.
You miss the best dessert of all time. It's called hummingbird cake. And it has roasted, pecans. I have roasted pecans and lots of this stuff.
Apparently, they were all homemade, and the lady who, I couldn't eat her.
It was a great meal.
The peach pie was good. Yeah.
It was so good. I was driving home looking at the recipe because I'm going to make one.
They usually probably were there and did it versus the lady.
Give me a second, real quick. You want to give us a second, real quick, everybody? Let me just get organized here. Let me see here. Okay, do we have everybody? Hi. All right. Everybody good to go? All right, so good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today in Hanover. My name is Dave Sunday. I'm the York County District Attorney, and this morning I'm joined by Chief Chad Martin, Hanover Borough Police, Lieutenant Joe Bunty from the Hanover Borough Police, Chief Guy Hedinger from Penn Township Police, Frank Apicello from the FBI. He's a supervisory special agent from the Harrisburg office. We have Sergeant Craig Batcher from the Pennsylvania State Police York Barracks and Chief Dave Lash from Northern Regional PD. We're here this morning to announce the results of a lengthy multi-agency investigation into the illegal distribution of cocaine, opioids, and other drugs in the greater Hanover area of York County. This 2-year investigation, which remains ongoing, resulted in the arrest of 37 people engaged in the possession and distribution of those illegal drugs. This joint investigation by the York County Drug Task Force, the Hanover Borough Police Department, Northern Regional Police Department, Penn Township Police Department, the FBI, and the Pennsylvania State Police began in November of 2021, where an individual, Billy Austin Norris of Gettysburg, was arrested on charges of the delivery of cocaine, which ultimately led to the discovery and arrest of many individuals, both separate and together, trafficking illegal narcotics throughout southwest York County and in one instance throughout the country. We've provided you with a detailed list of those individuals that have been charged to this point. There are 3 individuals that I'd like to discuss separately. The first case involves Darnell Harris. During this investigation, police officers determined that Harris was operating a cocaine delivery ring in the Hanover area and West Manchester Township. On some occasions, Harris would deliver cocaine to other persons or would send one of his associates, one of his co-defendants, to meet the buyer. They would often operate out of motel rooms in the Hanover area. Police determined that Harris was storing larger quantities of cocaine at a residence on Girard Avenue in York City. Harris would often travel between his former residence in West Manchester Township, one of the other individuals in York City, and motels in the Hanover area to facilitate the cocaine distribution operation. Harris and co-defendant Amber Hall were arrested on September 8th of 2023 after delivering cocaine to another person. This activity led to a search of a motel room in the Hanover area where amounts of crack cocaine were seized. Later that same day, investigators searched Wendy Hake's residence, another co-defendant, in the 700 block of Girard Avenue in York City. This location was determined to be a stash house. Police located amounts of crack cocaine, which Harris had stored in hopes of insulating his activities from police. While out on bail on the above drug distribution charges, Hall became involved in a robbery in Penn Township in April of 2023. She was charged with conspiracy to commit robbery, criminal use of a communications facility, and conspiracy to commit simple assault by Penn Township police detectives. Then in September 2023, again while released on bail, Penn Township police detectives developed information that Harris and Hall continued their drug distribution activities. A series of crack cocaine purchases were made from them. On September 5th of 2023, after making a cocaine sale, both were taken into custody by Hanover Borough Police. A subsequent search of the residence in the 600 block of Carlisle Street was conducted. Harris and Hall had used this residence to conduct cocaine transactions. Approximately $12,000 in cash was seized, which was attributed to drug sales. Both Harris and Hall were charged with additional counts of drug distribution and conspiracy. Another individual by the name of Deshaun Williams. This was in Hanover, Pennsylvania, also known as Trife, and Terrell Lee Smith from Shippensburg. Those individuals were charged with 1 count of possession with the intent to deliver cocaine and 1 count of criminal conspiracy after police officers made several cocaine purchases at a residence at 2 Stewart Avenue in Penn Township. On February 24th, 2023, investigators served a search warrant at that residence. Seized at that time was cocaine, 1 handgun, and $22,000 in cash. Additionally, Williams was charged with a firearms offense. Williams and Smith have since been indicted by the United States Attorney's Office for the Middle District of Pennsylvania for cocaine trafficking offenses, and we thank our partners here from the FBI who have worked diligently with us to ensure that individuals such as Williams and Smith are held accountable and indicted in federal court. A third individual by the name of Irock Shane Bunch. In April of 2023, York County probation officers visited Bunch at his residence in Manchester Township. At that time, they observed marijuana and contacted Northern York County Regional Police. Officers then searched the home and located 7 pounds of marijuana and 1,400 tablets appearing to be Xanax, but were later determined to be bromazolam, a non-scheduled designer drug. Information developed through this investigation led detectives to a garage in the 500 block of Baltimore Street in Hanover. It was determined that an associate of Bunch's was taking orders for fentanyl pills on the dark web. Orders were arriving from all over the United States. The associate would provide the orders to Bunch, who would in turn process the orders in that garage in Hanover. After counting the pills and packaging, Bunch would then place the package in the U.S. mail for shipment and delivery all throughout the United States. In addition to the substances described above, 6,320 fentanyl pills were seized, 9 additional pounds of marijuana, 8 ounces of mushrooms, and $21,000 in cash. Through the course of that investigation, it was determined by police that an additional approximately 50,000 fentanyl pills were shipped out of that garage in Hanover throughout the entirety of the United States. He also retained fentanyl that was sold throughout the entirety of York County as well. I want to take a moment to thank the hard work and dedication of all of law enforcement all throughout York County and our federal partners. What you see standing here before you today are the leaders in a collaborative effort to make our community safer, to hold drug dealers accountable, and to remove this poison from our streets that is tearing families apart and causing death throughout the entirety of our community. I want to remind everyone that last year in York County, we had 129 fentanyl deaths in York County. And so far this year, through September 21, we've had 84. The impact of dealing drugs of this nature is very, very real. I know as time goes on, sometimes we get used to hearing the numbers, and it becomes almost commonplace, but it needs to be remembered that these are children, teenagers, family members, people's brothers, sisters, husbands, and wives who ultimately lose their lives as a result of drug dealing, in particular the scourge of fentanyl that is throughout Pennsylvania and this nation. I want to again thank everyone up here for your hard work and dedication to the citizens, not just in your specific jurisdictions, but overall in York County. They have to work together collaboratively to achieve a common good for everyone, and that's what they're doing. I want to also state, for those out there that are currently suffering in the throes of addiction and are looking for help, we would ask you to go to the website for the York and Adams Drug and Alcohol Commission. If you go to that website, there will be a link, and it'll show different resources that will direct people to places where they can get help, be it detox or treatment or whatever they need, whatever help that they may need. I also want to remind everyone that the individuals that have been arrested that we're discussing today are all innocent until proven guilty in a court of law beyond a reasonable doubt. So that's the end of my statement. If we can answer questions, we certainly will. And I want to see, does anyone have anything? You want to wait until questions? Okay. Ed.
So who are the ringleaders and what is the relationship between them and the others?
So there's two parts to that. The first part is, and I said this initially, that what we did was we focused on this region and put resources, additional resources into it, in particular the Drug Task Force, working collaboratively with the Hanover Borough Police, Penn Township Police, Northern Regional, and everybody. And through the course of that, what we discovered was there were different cocaine distribution, I'll say, networks that were occurring. And then from that, the investigations, one led to another, which led to another, which resulted in some which are conspiracies, of a small magnitude, meaning 1 or 2 people. Others are individual actors. And then you have a larger one like IROC Bunch, who is collaborating in a larger conspiracy that is receiving and distributing fentanyl throughout the United States.
So simply put, some are independents, for lack of a better word, and some are working together as a gang.
That's absolutely right. Absolutely right.
How does this compare to like other drug busts throughout that you guys have handled throughout York County? Is this one of the larger ones that you've seen, or?
Well, so a couple of points I want to make. The first is when you look at them individually, like each one individually, okay, some of them are smaller with regard to weight, but they're still crack cocaine, fentanyl, things that kill people every day. Okay, so to start with, we want to keep that in mind as we're walking through this. When we look at the actions, for example, of Mr. Bunch, okay, and we look at the allegations in which he was receiving fentanyl here from other places, utilizing the dark web for people to mask their identity and remain anonymous, and then basically having a hub in Hanover where those are then being shipped out throughout the entirety of the United States, then I would view that as one of the most, one of the most, I don't know how, one of the major busts that we've seen in many, many years, in particular with an understanding that such small amounts of fentanyl can cause death. And so when you look at the fact that he shipped over 50,000 pills across the United States, I mean, and you look in particular at the amount of deaths that that could cause, I mean, not only is this a big bust with regard to that quantity, but it's a huge bust with regard to the impact on public safety by removing that logistics network from the system. Yep. Anything else?
Yeah, I've got a couple of other questions. So how many of these individuals are currently incarcerated? How many of them are out or awaiting trial? How many, I mean, you began the investigation 2 years
Sure.
ago.
Yep.
So, you know, I mean, are most of these people still on the street?
Well, I think what we can do, you and I can separately, we can go through each one if you want to and identify that. What I can say right now is many of these individuals are in prison. There are likely some that are currently on the street on bail, but I don't want to misstate the specificity of that. So you and I separately can go through that, and I'll get that information for you.
So if you were to characterize it, I know this is a tough question, but if you were to talk about the total load of drugs and paraphernalia, but specifically drugs and particularly cocaine, what type of dent has this made in the York County drug trade?
I would say that it's made, I mean, it without question has had an impact. I'll say it's had a material impact on the drug trade, in particular in the southwest part of the county. So we're looking at the Hanover Borough, Penn Township, like this whole area. We wanted to make sure that we had an impact on the drugs that are flowing through this area. One of the things I said in the beginning of this was that we sort of hit the pause button here because this is an ongoing investigation. And so there's a lot more that we can't go into today, and I think individuals in the community that are hearing this have to, I mean, they need to really take a look at themselves and decide what path they want to take. Do they want to be up here on one of these boards, or do they want to stop doing what they're doing and make it some different choices in life?
Was there any evidence throughout this investigation that specified that some of the victims included near schools or included children or young adults, teenagers? The victims.
Not that we, okay, so the initial activities, meaning like where the search warrant was, places of that nature, I mean, the reality is there's kids everywhere. I mean, and so...
Were these folks selling drugs to kids?
So we don't know specifically with these cases, but the reality, Ed, is that when you have this high of a quantity, in particular with fentanyl pills, I mean, the way that the fentanyl distributions work, it's not like a clean science, meaning like people get it, they sell it to the next person, they sell it to the next person. And at the same time, when you talk about fentanyl, there's no quality control with the manufacturing of these pills. And so these are things that each one could be different. They could have different weights and sizes. So the takeaway very simply is that law enforcement removed from the community a tremendous threat to public safety by this investigation, period.
And just a couple of summary questions. So the majority of these folks were in Hanover?
Yes.
Yes.
I'll say the greater area of Hanover, yes.
Okay. And are they big-time or small-time dealers? How would you characterize them?
I mean, I think that when you look at, first of all, in my opinion, anyone that's dealing crack cocaine to me is a major dealer or anyone dealing fentanyl is a major dealer. And I say that specifically because of the impact that even a little bit too much fentanyl could cause of death. So anyone that's dealing fentanyl to me is a big dealer to start with. But when you look at Mr. Bunch and you look at the amount that clearly is a major dealer.
So I looked at all the pictures and what was written underneath, and the majority says cocaine. So what does that say about the abuse with cocaine in society today? I mean,
Right.
What is this indicating to you?
I mean, what it indicates to me is that, there is a tremendous demand that still exists for all different types of narcotics. And I think that, unfortunately, when we have a demand that high, suppliers are going to find a way to get it to them. I mean, the fact that we're still seeing crack cocaine on a regular basis like this is certainly something that is scary, okay? And at the same time, when you're seeing in that same marketplace fentanyl being sold and purchased and used, well, that obviously makes it even worse.
And was fentanyl involved with all of these folks?
It was not involved with all of them, but it was not involved with all of them. Some of them were purely cocaine, crack cocaine. Yeah.
Are you concerned that some of these folks who are now out on bail are back out on the streets doing the same thing?
Yes, absolutely.
Can you talk about how challenging it is for law enforcement? Obviously, the dark web, all of these tools that these drug dealers have nowadays to make this so easy to get drugs from one side of the country to the other.
Mhm.
How hard is it for you guys to keep up with that? Obviously, you have tools at your disposal too, but.
Sure. Chief, do you want to talk about that?
I think relying on, again,
Can you come to the podium, please?
Thank you.
I believe relying on the cooperation effort of all the law enforcement agencies, especially the County Drug Task Force, where you have expertise, that helps more of the local law enforcement agencies keep up to date with that as far as the dark web and what goes on there. So to that aspect, yeah, it's tough for the smaller agencies to stay on top of the changing trends day in and day out.
Can you give the public some sort of idea of just how rapidly this is evolving? I mean, nowadays, as far as being able to sell drugs and deal them?
Being able to deal drugs is, as far as I've been 27 years here, it's been a problem. I think the dark web adds, a new context to it, and does make it difficult on trying to track where it's going to, where it's coming from.
Chief, what do you think about the vast majority of these folks doing this stuff in your town, particularly this Bunch guy? I mean, how does this make you feel as the law enforcement chief here?
Well, we realize there is a problem, and we're not going to tolerate it, and we're going to continue to work to, attempt to bring it under control. Obviously, with these investigations, the drug trade has no boundaries, and so I think it's a good example of good cooperative police work with these, our agencies, the other agencies represented up here, to continue to tackle this problem.
Chief, what do you think about what was going on in the 500 block of Baltimore Street? Orders being taken from all over the U.S.
It's very serious, and it affects more than just here in Hanover Borough. It affects outside of the borough, and again, it shows that the drug trade has no boundaries.
Can you, I'm sure you have intimate knowledge of every one of these cases. I'm sure you can, these are just the criminals, but I'm sure you are very well familiar with the victims. Tell us about how this has impacted life in Hanover.
Well, we do investigate, overdose deaths by drugs, and so imagine how the families feel, those victims that die because of a drug overdose, fentanyl, whatever it is. it has a serious impact, life-changing impact, long-lasting impact on families of those victims.
Have you seen a surge in drug-related deaths in Hanover in light of the activities of these individuals?
I think we've seen an ebb and,
Overdoses?
I think we've seen an ebb and flow. I think the last year or two, in the borough at least, we've seen a slight decrease, but one death is too many deaths. And, so we can't stop, our efforts. We have to keep going.
All right, thank you everyone for attending the press conference today. We appreciate it. And again, I want to thank all of law enforcement, not just those working or standing behind me, but all of their officers that are on the streets every day. Please remember that there are police officers that do this in a clandestine manner, and they're not here today, but they're working every day to keep us safe and happy and healthy, and they put their lives on the line to do this job. And so I just wanted to take a minute to make sure that we thank them as well. Thank you, everybody, for being here. That's it. All right.
Good job on the hot seat there, Chad.
All right.
Supervisor special agent? So what did you
Got Frank
what do we
Killer.
have down with the special agent? Oh, that's a big difference.